How lab-grown meat industry is being boycotted. Humans were made to eat what? Thinking in terms of behavior, we are omnivores, given that we consume a wide variety of foods from both animal and plant origins. On the other hand, biologically, speaking in physiology and anatomy, we have characteristics of herbivores. At no point do humans resemble carnivores. We do not have the same jaw opening, tooth position, length of the intestinal tract, body cooling, swallowing mechanism, or stomach volume and pH. Despite this, humans consume an average of 346 million tons of meat per year, with projections indicating a 44% increase by 2030, reaching 453 million annually. According to a survey conducted by Statista, approximately 86% of people interviewed in 39 countries stated that they maintain a diet with the presence of meat, even though they may substitute it with other types of protein sources. The most carnivorous countries in the world are the United States, ranking first with 120 kilos of meat consumption per capita per year, followed by Australia, Uruguay, Argentina, and Hong Kong. Currently, the livestock sector is estimated at $838.3 billion as the 2020 statistics showed, with a forecasted increase to $157 trillion by 2025. In 2018, the Faunalytics Research Center estimated that over 70 billion land animals are slaughtered for the meat industry annually. The Global Agriculture Organization states that 60% of the world's agricultural land is used for this purpose. By the numbers, it is possible to comprehend the immeasurable value of livestock to the economy, so the mere prospect of this capital cycle being diminished or interrupted is quickly thwarted by a well-structured lobbying effort. This is why there is a strong campaign to boycott lab-grown meat, the Mark Post hamburger. The meat industry, and its rapid acceleration over time, since the second half of the 20th century, is a problem that has gotten out of control. Although meat constitutes 2% of the daily calorie intake in the human-based diet, its production surpasses its demand, and many experts define it as a true addiction. It's no wonder that the production levels have not only turned industrial farms into breeding grounds for pathogens that reach states of hypervirulence, leading to outbreaks that evolve into epidemics and pandemics, but also affect the planet with their levels of greenhouse gas emissions. And that's not all. A 2019 report issued by the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services states that 40% of the planet's land is covered by farms. Meanwhile, it is estimated that 60% of the world's population will be living in urban centers by 2050, which means housing needs to be found for about 2.5 billion people by then, with urban areas becoming an increasingly limited resource, hostage to their own population density. In other words, we are running out of space. Considering these insidious aspects and animal welfare in 2013, Mark Post from the University of Maastricht created the first lab-grown beef burger. The piece of meat was made from stem cells from a cow and composed of 20,000 muscle fibers. The first lab-grown burger cost around $325,000, but technological improvements have lowered its price. The Dutch startup Moza Meat estimated that the cost of meat could be $80 per kilogram if they managed to achieve large-scale production. This means that a 140-gram burger would cost just over $11. Cultivated meat has positioned itself as a more environmentally conscious alternative to conventional beef, as it requires 45% less energy and 99% less land usage. The boycott campaign. Billions of dollars have been invested in the cultivated meat sector in the hope that the product is more environmentally friendly than traditional beef. While it is true that lab-grown meat eliminates the land, water, and antibiotic requirements of livestock farming, researchers believe that much of the interest in this sector has been driven by inaccurate analyses of carbon emissions. It is worth emphasizing, however, that there are no accurate records of what the long-term environmental or human health impact of artificial meat will be. This includes both American startups like Good Meat and Upside Foods, and experts in general, not to mention opposition opinions. So far, the only countries that have approved the commercialization of lab-grown meat are the United States and Singapore, and this has been enough to create a highly funded lobby to boycott the product, spread panic, and disseminate false information through TV and online ads. In 2023, the Center for the Environment and Welfare, CEW, whose executive director is Jack Hubbard, a partner at the public relations firm Berman and Company, which has a long history of supporting nonprofit organizations advocating for the interests of the food industry, launched a public information campaign purportedly aimed at educating about cultivated meat. The propaganda piece utilizes inaccurate or scientifically unfounded data and analyses to discredit this emerging industry. Hubbard claimed that Berman and Company helps provide services to CEW, with the aim of educating and informing consumers. Jessica Almy, Senior Vice President of Public Relations at the Good Food Institute, a nonprofit organization working to accelerate the adoption of alternatives to animal protein, told Wired that CEW is a source of misinformation. I think they are fueling fear about a clear and safe choice that is present on some restaurant menus in the U.S. and Singapore, she said. Horizon of uncertainties. Fox News aired an ad from CEW featuring lab-grown meat at a fictional school science fair, where it was claimed that meat cells grow like a tumor and are bathed in chemicals. CEW also relied on an article published by Bloomberg Businessweek in February 2023, which raised concerns about immortalized cells, to create a website comparing the cells used to cultivate lab-grown meat to tumor cells. Immortalized cells are a type of cell valued by the cultivated meat industry because they can duplicate indefinitely, making it much easier to cultivate meat in abundance from small cell samples. This unlimited growth capacity is also a hallmark of cancer cells, but beyond that, they are unrelated. It has become abundantly clear that CEW's campaigns are orchestrated to exploit people's concerns about new foods. It's worth noting that on their website, there is a section listing various types of chemicals that, according to CEW, could be used in the production of cultivated meat. It's important to emphasize that even the government doesn't have access to the list of components or colorings used by the food industry in the manufacturing of ultra-processed foods. The CEW's most recent campaign criticized the environmental credentials of lab-grown meat, citing an alleged study by the University of California on how polluting this industry would be if implemented. Widely publicized in the media, the study indicated that 25 times more greenhouse gas emissions would be released than necessary to process traditional beef. This is because the components of lab-grown meat are only possible to produce through a process involving mixing pharmaceutical-grade nutrients in a nuclear reactor, purified at a much higher level than usual. The Good Food Institute countered that the cited production methods are unlikely. Other studies have found that cultivated meat could have much lower carbon emissions than conventional meat. However, until manufacturers scale up production, it is difficult to determine exactly how emission-intensive the production will be. The war between cultivated meat and conventional meat is far from over, just as we are far from knowing whether it is as beneficial and almost miraculous as it claims to be, or as malign as the opposition asserts. We can only know that we know nothing, Tolstoy would say in his War and Peace. Subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell.